What's going on, everybody? It's Frito here for ClickHeads. Big news roundup for you today. Whether you're into esports, crossover skins, or just here for the game updates, we got everything covered. First up, wanted to update you on the conversation about the AWP meta and the prevailing consensus, at least at higher levels of play, that it is too strong given the context of the game and the tools you have to outplay it. Our favorite, most vocal Riot developer, Morello, went to Twitter to announce that they are looking into it and says that they will be continuing to dig into what they think the root causes are and any steps they want to take to address it, and that he'll share initial thoughts once they get something more firm together. But he does go on to respond to this thread with a bit more clarification, saying that they're not trying to remove or dunk the AWP, saying that defenders holding an angle with a sniper rifle should have a major advantage. That's by design. But they want to see if it's just frustration or a balance problem. Are Sentinels so strong that it's not worth bringing more offensive tools? And what skill bans are we talking about? And just last night, Morello went at length to describe a lot of these other surrounding issues in greater depth, announcing a number of agent changes that should be on the docket, and as well, their approach to deal with this quote operator problem. On his live stream, he explains that the AWP isn't dominating the highest tiers of play, which is to say in tournaments. Triple AWP would be god-awful there because there is the coordination to outplay it. Okay, then if that's the case, they want to take a look at the specific areas of play where it does seem to be oppressive, and rather than looking at the weapon specifically, it seems, they want to try to first attack the reasons surrounding the context of why it seems to be so easy to use. Now, of course, on these live streams, he speaks for hours and hours, as I'm sure all of us could, about Valorant. So I am going to be attempting to piece together some of the arguments here and connect the dots between different points, but I think a lot of them are related. And the balance updates that seem to be coming seem to be hitting two birds with one stone in relation to the operator meta. So first, some stats for you. Morello didn't get into the specifics of all the agents, but there's two agents that are performing bottom tier with Viper and, to the surprise of a lot of players, Breach. For both of them, their pick rates and win rates are quite low. And then above that sort of lower tier is a quite thick center tier where most agents are performing well. Then slightly above that is Raze, who's a bit too good, and then way above everyone else is Sage, who has a 54% win rate and an over 80% pick rate at all tiers of play. In an upcoming patches, I think what they're going to attempt to do, based on what Morello has said in passing in a lot of different spots in this live stream, is attack the agent meta and the operator meta from both ends. If everyone has to pick Sage for whatever reason, because it's too much undeniable value, they are going to nerf Sage again a bit. I'm sorry, Sage players, but her stats just back it up, that she does an insane amount for the team. Morello and I don't agree, however, that her healing is the main problem, and the main reason that she sort of holds every team comp together. Morello argues that there's other versions of healing in the game, and that doesn't see a disproportionate value with Phoenix and Reyna. And I know Morello watches our videos, so let me clap back with this one. Those elements of healing kind of suck in comparison to Sage, because Sage can pop her heal and safely run around corners or heal a teammate from distance. It's not the same thing as Reyna having to be in an engagement, then take a risk on dropping her weapon to pop an orb, get overheal and chain through kills, and Phoenix has to stand in a corner on top of an ability, making noise and healing himself and being quite vulnerable. So it's not quite the same thing. Run It Back definitely is in that similar way where there's just more stats you have to throw around, and that's possibly why Run It Back is one of the strongest performing ultimates in pro play right now. But other than that, Sage is the one that really has the flexibility with healing, especially when you compare to Phoenix, who doesn't even heal himself to full when he uses an ability. He needs two of them in order to get the same amount of healing power that Sage can, and she can do it on the run, which I think Morello is vastly underappreciating. If you made Sage stand still to cast heal on herself and channel it on someone, then you can start to feel how Phoenix feels. That would be a massive nerf, but I think that more puts her healing in line with the situationalness of Reyna being in combat or Phoenix being stuck out of combat for an extended period of time. Because otherwise, what are they going to do with Sage? They've already said that they want her to be the premier staller. Well, if you keep nerfing that stall stuff, then she's not going to be that. She's just going to be picked for healing. So I think they have to make a decision on that, and I hope maybe our feedback here can help this conversation. And of course, when Sage has a ubiquitous pick rate, ops are going to be better in that mirror mirror match where both teams are playing at least a Sage most of the time, because neither of them interact well with the operator. So that's one end of things. The other end of things is that it looks like they may in fact be increasing the power level of flashes a bit, but of course they really don't want to go too far with this. So he does go to say that Reyna's flash is the one they admit they don't consider weak. And oddly enough, I would say Reyna probably has the best flash up against an op, because Leer is great in 1v1s. It's not great against close angles or against enemy crossfires, because if they can just shoot it, you're not going to guarantee that space in the same way that a Phoenix or Breach flash might. And based on Morello's comments, it does seem like Breach is going to be getting some buffs eventually. And despite a lot of high-level players really believing in the character still, the stats don't back that up. The reason I would say that's the case is because he's inflexible with all of his abilities, where a character like Phoenix has lower impact, but is actually more flexible and has evolved with the meta of the game in a more fluid way, and Breach has dropped due to the knowledge gap kind of coming around. And once you learn the Breach spots that can really abuse you, you can outplay them more directly, whereas Phoenix, he can flash around a corner, he can flash out of a smoke, he has a lot of flexibility with those entries, whereas Breach pretty much has to play the same position the entire game, and that gets predictable. So if I had to suggest a buff for Breach, this one might be utterly OP and maybe steal a spotlight from my boy Phoenix if you could target Flashpoint on a smoke and pop it out of it just like you can do with Curveball. Then we might actually be talking, because you can't do that and you have to flash when there's a clear line of sight. When there isn't smokes in the way, it's simply more situational and actually better on defense, which is something that Morello does comment on, that they don't want to directly buff the flashes, can have the adverse effect of helping defensive play even better. And I think that's a very good point, something that they want to stay away from. So instead, I think the flexibility of it is the key. And the last character we have to talk about is the sort of redheaded stepchild in the middle of all of the tier list in terms of performance, and that's Raze, who's performing slightly above average. It seems that they are most likely to change her ultimate, either to make it harder to use or perhaps make it cost more. Knocking it up to 7 will put it in line with a lot of the other incredible ults in the game. I think this is an incredibly fair change as a Raze abuser myself. Between getting kills with your abilities and maybe getting an odd orb here or there, the amount of weapon kills you need before you get your ultimate is too low, because it might be 0, right, when it's at 6. That makes for kind of an oppressive, explosive gameplay loop where there isn't enough gunplay required of the Raze, so that will probably be a good change. And that wraps up our discussion about agents. Keep in mind, don't get your expectations too high for this next immediate patch. He does say it's going to be fairly small, but note that all of this conversation is in the works, so over the course of the next few weeks, we may see development in these different areas. And quick on the end, a couple comments made by Morello in the maybe category. He says he doesn't know what they want to do about friendly Leers. Perhaps they may change the color of it so that you know which one is friendly or enemy when you're interacting with it. There may be a price increase for the Judge, which I think is completely fair. I want to see more Buckies in my life, and the Judge is just too easy to use, especially on defense. It's almost as good as a full buy a lot of the time. And he says he doesn't know if a ranked reset will come in every episode or not. A lot of players really love the idea of MMR resets. It does send the game in utter chaos if you do a full reset, which is why developers typically don't do them. But I do see the value in soft resets, especially on meta changes, which is why every 6 months that might be in order, because remember, every episode will consist of 3 acts, and that's 3 new agents into the game, especially for players who maybe gained most of their rank and had more playtime over 6 months ago. The game and how you should play it might be completely different, so losing a bit of MMR in order to build yourself back up is kind of a good thing in my opinion, so you can have a bit more of a smooth transition rather than jumping right into whatever crazy meta we have next episode. I mean, there might be a turret meta for all we know with the Killjoy leaks that have been coming out, and knowing how to interact with that might be a severe knowledge gap. And hey, if you like these news roundup videos, be sure to hit us with a subscribe and click the bell icon to actually get notified directly to your cell phone when our new videos come out. You don't want to miss out. We cover in-depth breakdowns, guides, and as well community news, so to be sure that you catch it all, be sure to hit the bell. Other game update news, it was found on Reddit by Inert Brain that that Reyna had a stealth nerf accidentally included in the most recent patch, where you have to maintain line of sight in order to cast Devour or Dismiss, making the ability a lot weaker now that you can't duck around corners with it. Morello responds in saying that this was actually a mistake and will be fixed in the future. No word on when exactly that will be, but for now, Reyna will be performing a little bit worse than she otherwise would. Another major game-changing update, Mike Wan on Reddit found that there is a completely broken Brimstone one-way smoke, and I'm sure more if you can find the perfect angles for them, where I assume due to the new opacity changes with the visibility inside a smoke has changed it so that now if you're at the exact perfect position, you're able to see through it while almost being entirely hidden. This originally was why they had the smoke so thick beforehand, as this type of one-way tactic was very big in CSGO and something that they didn't want to be in Valorant, but looks like if you can get the perfect height on it, you can hide most of your hitbox inside it while seeing out pretty clearly. So be on the lookout for that. Another very important visual trick from Redditor Interrogate that shows off if you're playing on low settings, you're actually not getting the full map geometry information, which can be important that, well, you might hit an invisible skybox that block your abilities on accident, or might be missing out on key bits of geometry that can help you out on a lineup. Long distance lineups are easiest to remember when there are map elements that stand out. So although I know a lot of players try to play on the lowest settings possible in order to increase performance, this might be an argument to play on high settings. Next up in the news, Play Valorant released an article explaining the development process behind making the Elderflame skin bundle, the most flashy and over-the-top Valorant skin bundle to date, showing off some concept art and early animations for the weapon. And they talked about the work they put in to fit it into the dragon aesthetic they were going for. But everybody agrees that they look awesome. It's the price that the rest of us can't really wrap our heads around, and the full cost is a lot more than you think. Carrot on Reddit breaks down the actual full cost of fully upgrading the entire bundle, which the base price is about $100 US, but the total price, if you want to get all the Radianite that's required in order to get all the cool animations and visual effects, is going to go for a whopping $292. Granted, you do get some Radianite fairly cheaply in the battle pass, but there's only 150 in it, and you'll need 310 Radianite to fully upgrade all the skins and the knife. As Carrot says, you could buy almost 4 AAA games on launch for the same price. Listen, I'm not going to judge anybody for buying expensive skins in video games they love. I've done it in the past. I've bought knives in CSGO that were a few $100s, but the awesome thing about that is that when I stopped playing CSGO, I could sell the item on the marketplace and at least use the Steam currency to buy other games. At this point, I'm starting to wonder how many skins does Riot actually think I can afford or want to buy? I only can use one at a time. Am I supposed to stockpile skins like a dragon hoarding gold? Well, that's actually a better analogy for Riot at this point, isn't it? Yeah, I think this is kind of unfair. Something that would make me feel a little bit better is if there was a way to exchange skins you've bought for new ones coming out, because now I have regret for spending hundreds of dollars on a different skin, then they come out with the super supreme extra skin that maybe if I had time to wait for it, I would have rather my money go to that. That's how I'm feeling right now, and just any way to navigate this to sort of make it a bit more consumer friendly, I think. My backup argument is, of course, that the Battle Pass has a lot of great skins in it and is fairly cheap. So moving forward, I'm just gonna use the Battle Pass skins because they work good enough. You just have to play enough in order to unlock all of them, but that's fine. Truth be told, none of us need cosmetics. It's just something awesome that we want. Next up in the news, we're gonna talk about eSports for Valorant. There's been a handful of tournaments in both NA and EU where the best teams in the world have been going at it. ESPN has a good article recapping the week's events. Currently, Europe is heavily dominated by G2, whose star player coming over from CSGO, Mixwell, helped lead the team to a dominant victory in the Vitality European Open. All experts that I've seen speak about it are still unsure which region is actually stronger or who has the best team overall, which is a question we may not have answered until the state of the world changes around. Over in NA though, the Pulse Invitational saw a major upset. The team most experts seem to think still the best in the world, TSM, had a major upset loss against Cloud9, who looked incredibly prepared for the matchup. I'm in fact going to attempt to make a breakdown video on how Cloud9 was able to completely counter-strat TSM's most dominant tactics, many of which we broke down on this very channel. You gotta think, think if a nerd like me is dissecting TSM's every move, you would hope that the top teams were as well, and it definitely showed. So they didn't make it to the final this time. Instead, Gen.G, a team that hadn't seen success since the beta, where they won some early tournaments then, made a big soaring comeback, led by GMD, their clutch fragger Phoenix player. And as it seems, sort of taking from the lead of TSM, a lot of these NA teams have been adopting the Phoenix, and with it, Gen.G solidifies themselves as possibly one of the top teams again. Currently, NA has the widest array of full signed professional teams for Valorant, making for the most parity of any region, I'd say. Who knows who's got the best overall team until we have international play, but one big buff to the European region is that it has been reported that Scream and Fish123 are going to be getting signed to Team Liquid, which hopefully will put up a close competition for the EU crown with G2. Fish123 were the most dominant European beta Valorant team, and although lost their star player Artis, who went on to G2, Scream was a player that seems to just fit perfectly into Valorant like peanut butter and jelly. Although he doesn't play the AWP, he has some of the most dominant rifle aim you'll ever see in this game. Truth be told, Scream was aiming this way in CSGO for years and years, in the slow, controlled burst style that's required in Valorant, when it wasn't even very good in CSGO, and he still had pretty good results there. And the man has been a walking highlight reel in any tournament he's been in so far, so it's good to see him into the fray. On to some more fun news. Wanda on Twitter made some incredible Valorant and League of Legends crossover skins, so good that the Riot developers reached out to her. This Phoenix skin would be for the champion Echo, and an interesting small detail inside the backpack, he's actually carrying a spike, along with, of course, all the bells and whistles that comes with Phoenix as a character, the flame jacket, gold rings, and fire, and another similar one for a Jett skin for the champion Akali, who also is carrying the spike. I think these look amazing. My only criticism is that these entry fragtastic characters don't carry the spike ever. Duelists don't play the objective. My immersion is broken. Just kidding. I think these are awesome. And it seems Riot thought so too, so much so that the game director of both Valorant and League of Legends chimed in on Twitter to reach out to the artists, so you may be seeing these skins in League of Legends in the near future, or at the very least, Wanda might be getting picked up as an artist. Crossover skins was something that in previous statements the developers have said wouldn't be a thing in Valorant or vice versa, but perhaps just by how cool these were, they were convinced? We'll have to see. And just today, Valorant kicked off their first community spotlight, where some of Riot's illustrators pick out some of their favorite community creations. This first one by Sui Sui shows off Sage and Phoenix in very casual attire, just hanging out, looking like they're in high school or something. Casual, relaxed, playful. That's a pretty cool one. Would look good as a poster on a t-shirt. For a more hardcore tone, X Charney shows off Jett and really captures the motion that is the character's essence. I see this picture and I'm just reminded how many times a Jett has flown over the top of my entire team and ulted us all in the back for a quick ace. Really cool looking, but also kind of scary at the same time. On the other end of things is Duet's cute rendition of Valorant characters. They pull out this cat-themed Reyna, who really captures the sassy personality of the character. But on Duet's Twitter page, I found what I liked even more. This is Sage holding 2 ice cream cones, which I think is going to forever change the image of her slow orbs in your mind from now on. And this last one from Egg Ramen describes the feeling of playing Sova for the first time, sort of a perception versus reality situation where trying to get a handle on the bounce of the darts kind of shoots your eye out, Christmas Story style. And well, with many of the difficult things in Valorant to execute, I think we all know the feeling of trying to be a badass and then shooting yourself in the foot. Classic. Next up, Sabby on Twitter makes the most authentic Sage cosplay that I've ever seen. I saw this and was blown away, and for whatever reason, she was getting hate on Twitter for this, which just goes to show you, your expectations for comments on the internet can never be low enough. If you agree with me and think that this cosplay is pretty great, please go over on Twitter and hook up Sab with some positive reinforcement to show her that the Valorant community isn't full of toxic jerks. And last up for the video, we have your moment of zen. Yeti Apocalypse here experiences what I'm going to call as the biggest Sage wall outplay in the history of Valorant. Check it out.
I smoked cat, probably taking tiles.
I think if I want to be serious, I commit.
Oh my god! I'd say you hate to see it, but I actually love to see it. That's possibly the most funny clip I've ever seen. That was captured on Mango's stream, linked in the description, as well with the sources for all of the things we discussed here today. You can check it out. But other than that, that's going to be everything for today's news wrap-up video. If you did enjoy it, please be sure to leave it a like. It really does help us out, lets us know that you're enjoying the content. And if you haven't already, hit subscribe and be sure to hit the bell icon to actually get notified when our videos go live. Link to the description is our Twitter. Hit us a follow on there, where we tweet out news, our videos, as well as discuss with you guys the state of the game. Other than that, that's been it for me. I've been Frito for Clickheads. We'll see you guys next time.